got a new piece of fan art. I'm leaving it in the corner through the entire video, and I'll blow it up at the end. This one was by Poignant Spoon, so thanks Poignant Spoon. Anyways, it's been a while since I did a PragerU video. It isn't really a cult per se, but it's still interesting, so let's get into it.
Is there an afterlife? Life after this life ends? There probably isn't a human being who hasn't asked this question at one time or another. And here's the answer.
Oh, here's the answer from Dennis Prager. Let's hear what he has to say about it. Here he comes, giving us life's answers. Let's hear him out.
If there is a God...
Well, get it out, Dennis. What's taking so long?
There is an afterlife. It's that simple. And here's why. First, this life is filled with an immeasurable amount of injustice and suffering. The only way there can be some ultimate justice for victims of evil is if there is an afterlife. And the only way comfort is available to those who suffer unjustly, from painful disease and premature death to the death of a child, is if there is an afterlife.
Okay, take a look at what he's doing here. He says that there must be an afterlife if there's a God, and that's because it isn't comforting. That seems like a ridiculous argument. So he's going to list 3 things that almost everybody on the planet has been affected by in some way: painful disease, premature death, and death of a child. I would guess that at least 80% of his audience has experienced one of those 3 things. And if they haven't, he has the 4th thing waiting to grab them by the emotions and shake them real hard by saying that the afterlife is the only ultimate justice for victims of evil. This is 100% an appeal to emotion logical fallacy. The appeal to emotion fallacy is where the arguer tries to manipulate the recipient's emotions to win an argument, especially in the absence of factual evidence. That is an exact description of what he's doing here.
But such an afterlife exists only if there is a good and just God. A good and just God provides a way to compensate for all the unjust suffering in this world. Second, since God is not physical, the physical world is not the only reality. There is also a non-physical reality.
Oh wow, so much to talk about here. He's just throwing claims out left and right. Let's break this down a little bit. So he says that an afterlife, as he describes it, which evens out the scales of justice, only exists if there's a good and just God. I don't know how he could possibly know that or connect the two, but let's continue on for argument's sake. Then he says that since God isn't physical, the physical world isn't the only reality. I don't know how he could possibly know if God is physical or not, but let's roll with it.
And we humans have a part of us which, being non-physical, survives the death of our body. We call it the soul. But if there is no God, this physical life is all there is. So, no God, no soul, no afterlife.
Okay, new claims. Assuming he isn't physical, how could we possibly know that we could have access to this reality in which he lives? Even though we can poke parts of our brain and lose the ability to ride a bike, or to sing, or to understand verbs, we somehow retain that ability after our brain rots into the ground. Fine, we can explain that with magic. At this point, he's expecting you to accept basically anything he says because he's grabbed your emotions by the throat and made them call him daddy.
Now, of course, those who doubt God's existence have every reason to doubt an afterlife. But if you believe in a good God, then you have to believe there's an afterlife. If you say you believe in God but not in an afterlife, the God you believe in is not only not good, that God is cruel.
Oh, interesting. So that God is cruel, but the God who created this hell on earth isn't cruel. What about the children whose parents are murdered in front of them, given an AK-47 and pointed toward the enemy? The kind of God who would let 4,200 religions exist in the world, all trying to reach a specific truth, but all being completely contradictory. Some of which are so sure that they're right, that they will blow themselves up if it means taking out an unbeliever. That kind of cruel? What about a God who would allow priests to molest children and then allow the leadership of this church to move those priests around to avoid prosecution? Is that the kind of cruel God we're talking about? Don't give me this free will bullshit. Is there evil in heaven? No? Then is there free will in heaven?
That God made a world filled with unjust suffering and just left it at that.
No, but according to you, he did create this unjust world. And to me, that seems bad enough. Why does God need to create this ultimate scale of justice? Why couldn't he have just made the world like heaven from the start? Don't babies start out good? And on that note, isn't it more f***ed up to let Adam and Eve continue reproducing instead of just creating another perfect set? This whole story just doesn't make any damn sense. No sense at all. No god sense.
Now, some people who don't believe in an afterlife offer their own version of immortality. I once attended a funeral where the man officiating said, "While there is no afterlife, we do live on through our good works and in the memories of loved ones."
Okay, this seems a little far-fetched to me. Did this guy really attend a funeral where somebody said there is no afterlife? I can't imagine anybody ever saying that at a funeral, atheist or not. Does he think atheists feel good about the end of their lives? Does he think we're expecting some great reward of our own? Being atheist is hard. It's not easy knowing what's coming. It's not easy facing the death of people you love. Unlike this guy, I don't believe it for the comfort. I believe it because the other options don't seem plausible at all.
That's what a lot of people who reject an afterlife want to believe. But the idea that human beings live on through their good works or through the memories of loved ones, which generally means a person's children or grandchildren, is simply meaningless. If people live on through their good works, then children who die don't live on. The number of good works most children are even capable of is minuscule. As for babies who die, well, babies can't engage in good works at all, so I guess they just don't live on. Anyway, the truth is that bad works usually live on longer than nearly any good works. In fact, if works make us immortal, Hitler, with all the evil he did, is far more immortal than the kindest people on earth. As for living on in the memories of our children, what do we say to those who have no children? Sorry, you don't live on.
And here he's trying to grab your emotions and take them from behind like the dirty thoughts they are once again. He's trying to compare what Christianity has in an afterlife to what atheists use for comfort.
Moreover, living on in anyone's memory, as beautiful as that is not the same as immortality or an afterlife. As Woody Allen put it, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it through not dying. If there's no afterlife, we don't live on. Period. Let's be honest enough to acknowledge that. If there's no afterlife, none of us will ever again be with those we most love and who love us. If there's no afterlife, neither anyone murdered nor any murderer will ever receive ultimate justice. If there's no afterlife, this life, for the vast majority of people who ever lived and for those alive now, is a meaningless crapshoot.
I did a PragerU video like a year ago, and I drew this picture for it. I haven't had an opportunity to use it since. Well, now's my chance. Anyways, dude's just trying to pull at your heartstrings once again. It's just that whole appeal to emotion fallacy. That's basically his only argument at this point. Then he sticks some god in there since he's got your attention and you're willing to accept things he says more easily. I have no respect for people who do this kind of thing.
Finally, people always ask me, so what happens in the afterlife? To which I can only respond, I don't know, but I do know this. My belief in God and the afterlife keeps me sane.
That's concerning. I'm wondering if you were ever sane in the first place, if an imaginary friend is the only thing keeping you hinged.
The thought that this life is all there is means that torturers get away with the horrors they have engaged in. It means that this life is random and pointless. And it means that I will never again see anyone I love. This would drive me mad. In fact, I don't see how it wouldn't drive anyone mad who cares about suffering and who loves anyone. So is there an afterlife? If there is a God, of course there is.
Get away with? I wouldn't say that. They're dead. Doesn't really seem to me like they got away with it, but I get what he's saying. He's saying he wants this ultimate scale of justice. He wants something worse than death for some people. I can empathize with that position when I think about all the things various dictators have done. But facts are facts, and emotions are emotions. There just isn't enough reason to think that what he's saying is real. As mad as it might drive him, as depressing as it might feel, that's part of being human. Here we are. There's no backing out. Enjoy it while you're here, and don't bitch about it too much because it makes everybody else miserable. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and Discord. Thanks for watching, guys.